To bring those two concepts together today, let's get going. First of all, this is the agenda. We're going to establish the power of play, what exactly it can do for your students right away. Then once we've got that foundation, we're going to explore two big ways that we can play, two flavors of play in the classroom. We're going to talk about playing downhill and playing uphill. And if you're curious about what those two things might mean, well, outstanding. We are going to satisfy that curiosity coming up here really soon. And then we're going to satisfy your desire for some free stuff at the very end. We've got a giveaway, so make sure you stick around until the conclusion to take advantage of that. Let's get going. But before we get into the content, I do want to mention that we are sponsored today by Blue Apple. These are project-based learning experiences that give the teacher everything that you need in order to help your students understand that they have the power to use their knowledge and to use their skills to make a difference in the world. They're really awesome projects. I highly recommend them. So when we are done here today, if you want to go to blueappleteacher.org, you can use the coupon code webinar to save 10% on the project or projects of your choice. Also want to answer a couple of frequently asked questions. If you want to review anything that we cover today, there will be a recording which is going to be emailed out shortly after we're finished. There's also in the chat box a link to a handy HyperDoc collection of resources. So you want to review anything, you can dive right in there. If something piques your curiosity and you want to explore it in more depth, you can go right through that HyperDoc and you can have that curiosity satisfied. And also, we have the wise and wonderful Robin hanging out behind the scenes. At least I hope she's hanging out behind the scenes. Robin, are you there?
I am here, Ben. Thank you all for joining us today.
And Robin is here to help out with any tech-related questions or to answer anything that you wonder throughout the course of the webinar. Go ahead and use the chat box to get a hold of the highly helpful Robin. Now, last thing before we get into the content, I am curious who we are working with today. So if you could answer that poll question, who do you work with? Are you teaching kindergarten through 2nd grade students, 3rd through 5th? 6th through 8th, or 9th through 12th, or are you an administrator or someone who's involved in education in a different capacity? I would love to find out a little bit more about the audience today, so if you could fill that out, that would be outstanding. Robin, in addition to answering questions behind the scenes, is also running the polls. So Robin, how are we doing? We want to give them a couple more seconds, or are we good to reveal the answers?
Let's do a couple more seconds. They're still rolling in a little bit. All right, excellent. I'm going to close it out. So it looks like we have representation from all areas. So we're 46% K2, 42% 3-5, 12% for middle school and admin or other, and 8% high school.
All right, so this is an audience that teaches lots of young students who are accustomed to learning through play. Hopefully you get some great ideas today. And if you're teaching those older students, you find ways that you can use to keep that playful spirit alive in your students as they progress through school. So thank you very much for sharing. Let's dive in and explore the power of play. On your screen, you see a picture of a molecule, and that molecule is in your brain right now. But when you are engaged in exploration or exercise, or especially play, the level of that molecule is boosted. It's called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and it's a really powerful thing. In association with some other chemicals, it improves memory. It improves your ability to learn by boosting brain plasticity. In fact, it's associated with a decreased risk of neurodegenerative disease. And how do we boost this chemical in the brain? Well, it happens when we play, when we're curious to find things out, when we're exploring, when we're wondering. That little baby right there in front of you right now has an increased level of BDNF in his or her brain. And you can build that up in your students. Now, it's not just humans who have this response. It's adorable little primates. It's those cute little pet pigs that we have there, rodents. All of those animals experience the same sort of thing when they're playing, when they're exploring. these same sort of chemical changes happen in their brain. So this is not just something that's abstract, this is something that's physical. If we can get our students to play, we change the way their brains operate for the better. We can make their brains a little bit more awesome by incorporating more play. Because, big important idea, brains are built to play. So we're going to explore 2 different flavors of play in the classroom, some specific ways that you can incorporate playfulness into your classroom community. Some of these ideas might be things that you already know. Some of them might be things that are brand new, but I hope that you find something practical that you can use to help boost how awesome of an instructor you are. So those 2 ways involve playing uphill and playing downhill. Now, when we play uphill, we're thinking about games or sports or activities where there's a really concrete objective that we're striving for. If we're working hard to achieve a goal in this game, we're thinking about playing uphill. If we're thinking about playing downhill, well, now we're thinking about being playful. Maybe it's not even a game that we're doing, we're just acting playfully. We're following our curiosity and seeing where it may lead, much in the same way that water flows downhill. You can see that video right there. You don't know when you pour that water at the top exactly what that pathway is going to look like. And some of the activities that we do in the classroom play out this same way. We allow students to pursue their curiosity, to creatively pursue their questions, and to see where those questions might lead. We get this attitude going in our students where they're just trying to get to the bottom of this, which is a little pun with playing downhill. They're trying to investigate their questions creatively to see where they might lead. That kind of attitude is what I'm terming playing downhill. And we're going to explore specific ways that you can do both of those things in your classroom. Now, I hope that frame is useful. Playing uphill, striving to meet an objective, playing downhill, following our curiosity creatively. Because you want to get a variety of types of play in your classroom. And also, when you think about injecting some additional play into your culture, you can think about which kind of play you'd like to do. So I hope that frame is helpful, and I hope those practical ideas are helpful as we go through our session today as well. So let's start off with some ideas for playing downhill. First of all, this is one of my favorites, the idea of messing about. We do a lot of professional development with inquiry science or inquiry math, and we really encourage teachers to allow their students to have hands-on experience with the concepts that they're learning about. So giving students some batteries and wires and bulbs and allowing them to experiment and to explore, to gain some foundational understanding of how these things might work. With math, maybe we give them some fraction pieces or some Cuisenaire rods, and we allow them to investigate how these things operate. By giving students the opportunity to experiment and explore before we get into more formal instruction, we give them that concrete foundation so that any abstract understandings they develop are connected to the real world. So we actually did this at the conference that we just concluded, Science on the Grand, by having a creation station where teachers could get some materials, some interesting materials, and could follow their curiosity and come up with their own creations. So one of those stations involved putting together some PVC pipe, and teachers built some interesting limbo bars and marble tracks. We didn't know what it was going to look like. We just allowed teachers to follow their curiosity, to build what they intended to build, to see what they could do with these materials, and again, to gain that hands-on understanding of how these things operate. So messing about, great strategy for helping your students to play downhill and to follow their curiosity. You can do this in all sorts of different domains. We think about it a lot of the time in science, but you can also do it in math and ELA and social studies. Let students explore and experiment in a hands-on way. That's messing about. You can also use technology. We don't have to be afraid of technology because we can use it to foster this same sort of thinking. So our next strategy is textplorations. It involves ways to use technology to allow students to do some following of their own wonderings. One great, really flexible way to do this is with hyperdocs. Hyperdocs are just collections of resources which exist in one place online. Google Docs is a great way, for example, to do this. And here you collect some different things that students might wish to explore, which are connected with your content, and then you allow them to see what catches their eye and to follow their own curiosity. Hyperdocs are a great way to take the instruction or the content that you want to share and to allow students to do that in a way which is more curiosity driven and playful. I love ThingLink. Thinglink.com is a great website. You can get a good free version, and it allows you to build visual explorations for your students to follow. So here's an example of one. This is from one of our timely topics called Earth Day Explorers. And this activity is called Wonderful World. So students just get a map of the world. They can click wherever they would like, and when they do, it opens up a ThingLink. Again, you can build these ThingLinks for free, and you can just explore the different icons, each of which is associated with some fun fact, something to open up students' minds. Quite often, I like to give them some structure to use as they do their exploration, having them write down the 5 most interesting facts that they discover, for instance, or having them come up with 2 additional things that they like to research as a result of their investigation. So ThingLink can be a really great tool for allowing students to explore in interesting ways. If you haven't seen that before, check it out, highly encouraged. Another great strategy for allowing students to poke and play with ideas is simulations, allowing students to play with a concept. I'm going to give you an example. One of those Blue Apple projects, State of Sustainability, involves a game where students play with the very idea of sustainability. Here's what they do. They get a pond full of 12 fish, and they need to decide how many fish they're going to catch each week. So they make their decision. They do some fishing with bait like that. That's a jar of jam. They would maybe catch some jellyfish. They catch their fish. In this case, this student has chosen to catch 5 fish, leaving 7 behind. 12 to start. Do a little math. Catch 5, 7 left. Now what happens is those 7 remaining fish, they pair up, they fall in love, and then a little later in the week, we have some baby fish. So that when those baby fish grow up, now we have a new number of fish in the pond. We started with 12. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fish. So when we come back and we catch 5 the next day, now we're down to 5 fish remaining, and you can start to see the problem developing. Students, when they're playing this game or engaging in the simulation, they start to see the problem developing. Now we can only have 2 baby fish, so that when we catch 5, our numbers get smaller and smaller until eventually we run out. And they've explored the idea of sustainability by playing around just with this simple simulation. There are tons of different simulations that you can do. One of my favorites is the Baboon's Dilemma. Baboon's Dilemma is from a timely topic that we make called Classroom Community. And here, students actually get an opportunity to play around with the very idea of cooperation. They get to see for themselves just why cooperation can be such a powerful thing. If you're curious exactly how that works, check it out in the Hyperdoc, in that resource document. You can see a link to the Baboon's Dilemma and play that with your students. Again, this idea that students learn deeply when they're playing, and you can see that in simulations like this. They really understand that content deeply by playing around with it and seeing what happens when they choose different paths. So simulations can be a super powerful way to play downhill in your classroom. Role-playing games where students have to adopt a perspective and then to act as if they were that character. That can be a really powerful way to introduce simulations into your classroom. And again, there are great tech options here. The PhET simulations put on by the University of Colorado have hundreds and hundreds of different scientific investigations or simulations where students can play around with different concepts. They can explore, they can experiment, they can see how things work. Again, that's that whole playful attitude that we really capture when we play downhill in our classrooms. And last but not least, we're going to talk about open-end games, using the power of open-endedness to level up the amount of play, that playful attitude in your classroom. So there's Thanos from Avengers Endgame. This is what would happen if we gave him a little bit more artistic perspective there, and instead of being bent on, single-minded world domination, he had more of an open spirit, an artistic spirit to explore and experiment with different possibilities. Let's see what that might look like. Again, we can just give students challenges here where there's no one right answer, and we can encourage them to think creatively about something which captures their interest or curiosity. So I love caption contests where we show a strange picture which is connected in some way with something that we're learning, and we have students write the caption for it, try to figure out what's going on. Maybe if they get tired of that, see the tires there, and they want to try something a little bit different, they can use that picture as a launching off point for a story. You can use this as a creative writing exercise. So we're thinking about getting open-ended and playing with that sort of mentality. I love weird analogies. Again, there's no one right answer here. It's a very open-ended exercise, but you can ask them to compare something you're learning about with something familiar. And here, again, you're teaching rich content. They have to think deeply about the thing that they're learning and its characteristics to try and figure out how it might connect with these other objects. So how is a skyscraper like an orange? How is George Washington like a sports car? How is Bernoulli's principle like a goat in a field? I don't know the answer to those. There's not one right answer, but students can think creatively, they can think playfully in order to come up with really interesting answers. Again, another similar activity is the square pegging activity, asking some questions where students have to think outside of the box in order to come up with a solution. You can see as you try to construct answers to some of those questions that the attitude that you'd have to adopt is one of playfulness. And so square peg activities like this can be a great way to interject more playfulness into your classroom. If you want a bunch of randomly generated questions, there is in your HyperDoc a random square peg generator that you can use. Anytime you type a new word in here, it will generate a new, strange, weird, playful sounding question. So those are some examples. Let's look at a couple more. Anytime you're having your students get creative, maybe expressing their understanding with an infographic, you're thinking, having them think in an open-ended, playful fashion. This can be an example. It's not a game, but it can be an example of playful thought and playful action in the classroom. Whenever we do this activity with students or in professional development sessions with teachers, we get lots of smiles, lots of fun conversations. So it's a way of interjecting play, even without having a structured game. We love the Make a Mascot challenge. Again, allowing people to think creatively about their topic. They have to think deeply about it to build a mascot that is an effective metaphor for what they're learning about, but it interjects some playfulness into the classroom. So those are some playing downhill strategies. And I am curious, what do you want to use? Which of these really are interesting to you? Now, you can pick more than one. You can pick all four if you want. Personally, I think all four are awesome. That's why I put them in here. But I'm curious how you respond to those different options. What would you like to incorporate into your classroom to help your students play downhill? So, Robin, how are we doing on answers right now?
We're doing good. They're still rolling in pretty quick. So let's give it probably 5 more seconds and then I will shut it down.
4, 3, 2, 1, and polls are closing. Let's see what people thought. Robin, what do we see?
All right, so it looks like people want to use all of them, which is excellent. At the top, we have messing about and open-end games at 54%, followed by textplorations and simulations at 43%.
Close race there. Glad to see people are finding some of those to be useful. Hopefully something for everybody there. Now, let's get to playing up that hill. I promised my colleagues I would not sing to the tune of Running Up That Hill, but you can sing it in your own mind if you would like. We're thinking about games and sports where we're striving to meet an objective. So when we think about sports, when we think about games, this is the kind of attitude that we typically see when we think about Michael Jordan trying to win the NBA championship or Magnus Carlsen trying to win the chess championship. They're really striving to achieve an objective. That competitive urge can really drive humans to excel. And of course, we know that one of the most important things that we can do in the classroom is help our students separate themselves into winners and losers. It's really, actually, I don't believe that. I don't think that we need to use games in order to separate students in that way. I think that we can capitalize on that competitive urge in a way that allows everybody to strive together for success. And we're going to share one weird little twist that you can use to take your competition and to turn it into cooperation without taking away any of those benefits that competition gives to us. So here's what you do. In most of your games, you can have two sides striving against each other. In almost every situation, in fact, I think in every situation in the classroom, you can figure out a way to flip that around and have students pulling together to try to meet some standard or objective, or to try to improve on their previous performance. In that way, we still keep all the benefits of competition, but we make the flow of that activity cooperative. Every time that I've made this switch in the classroom, it has leveled up my gameplay. Students have learned more and have had a better time with it. And so we're going to explore how to do that right now. One way is to find games where the actual objective requires cooperation, where the people are working together to finalize or complete something. Again, in one of our timely topics called Games, which we include a link in that hyperdoc there to Games, we've got this one called Winding Words, where students get vocabulary cards and they need to work together with the other members of their team to figure out how they can link those cards together into a chain so that every card is connected to the cards that it is touching. Students get to explain what their card means. They get to talk about what their connection is. They can help each other out. The goal is for them to finish, to get all their cards connected together in a chain. And then when they're finished, we have them scramble it all up and work together to recreate that chain exactly. So they really learn this vocabulary deeply. They're thinking about what it means and how it connects with the other words. They remember this long after they're done, but they're not trying to beat the other people there. They're trying to work together to accomplish an objective. Putting that chain together, and then after they scramble it, trying to put it back together, try to recreate it as a team. Some games are like that. They allow you to play cooperatively. Now, Pictionary and Charades, these are games that you might have played in your classroom. They're great because whatever you're learning, there's some vocabulary that's associated with it. And you can have students draw or act it out to really think deeply and to have fun doing it. But instead of having two different teams competing against each other, we can make this a partnership. We can have the class work together to see how many they can solve in a given time frame. You can have students rotate through to be the drawers or the actors, and every time somebody gets one, we move on to the next one. We see how well we can do as a class. It's a great atmosphere in class when we're doing this kind of thing, where everybody is working together and having a good time doing it. By the way, those pictures that I drew for you were ambiguity and scurvy. And if you wonder how those pictures connect with those words, you can send me an email when we're done, and I'd be happy to reveal the answer. Also, a lot of you might do trivia games, kind of in a Jeopardy style, to review some content, for example, before a quiz or a test. Great activity, involves some pressure, some appropriate pressure, allows students to practice recalling what they know. We can level that up, though, by making it team trivia. Instead of tracking how many one person gets against someone else, we can have the class working together to see how many they can get, so that each person's success is everybody's success. They're cheering for each other. That can really help them support each other throughout the game, but also to practice beforehand. So if you know that this game is coming up and you know your team wants to beat their old record, then students can support each other. They're more inclined to support each other by making sure that people who are struggling with something can learn that, can understand it. I also love this idea from golf. When you play best ball scrambles, you make sure that you take something from everybody, right? When you play best ball, everybody has to count at least one drive. We can do the same thing here. Again, this helps encourage the community of students to make sure that everybody is successful, because we know that we need contributions from all members. We can even use this idea on tests. When you give tests, you can work together to see if you can continue to boost that class average. For example, reveal the class average at the end and see if you're improving over time. In fact, you can go public with this. People love seeing youth sports in the newspaper. You could do the same thing with your school newspaper or even your local newspaper. It'd be cool to share how the class has progressed as they continued to work. So there's a little newspaper article about Team Talsma improving their assessment outcomes there. Go public, share your student success as they're working together as a team. We can also use this in classroom management. We can gamify it. So for example, if you are working on improving the rate of homework return, you can have the class earn tokens or coins based on how well they're doing together. And as that jumps up and down, they can earn more or fewer coins. Again, this builds some positive peer pressure. So students are talking with each other. Hey, do you have a plan to make sure you get your homework done so that we as a team can earn more points together? We could do this with transition times. We want to get that transition time down as far as possible, so we're not wasting classroom time. Well, one way to do that is to track it over time and see if you can score points against the evil villain, right? So have some sort of boss to add a narrative structure to this challenge. And then as your students slowly get that transition time down, they can do better and better, maybe even against harder and harder bosses. Again, we're trying to gamify this idea of classroom management. Or you can have them move along a pathway. So if you're trying to collect as many acts of kindness as you can say each act of kindness is another step along this pathway, and eventually the class gets to have some sort of reward, get to go to the zoo. The key here is that in all of these different actions, we're working together to encourage students to support each other as they strive toward these objectives. So I am curious, which playing uphill ideas do you want to use? We've got cooperative play, we've got partnership, Pictionary and Charades, we've got team trivia, or gamifying your classroom management. All of these are examples of striving for a goal, trying to achieve an objective, but working together in order to do that. So, Robin, how are we doing on our responses?
Looking good. Let's do another 5-second countdown and we'll be ready to go.
I will do another 5-second countdown. I'd be happy to. Ready? You got a couple more seconds to finish up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's see what we've got.
All right. Another set of great ideas. So Ben, we are at 64% cooperative play, followed by 57% at gamified classroom management, partnership, Pictionary, and Charades at 50%, and team trivia at 46%.
Outstanding, all really highly useful. I'm glad that you feel like those will be things that you can incorporate into your classroom. That makes me really happy. So we have gone through some different ideas about incorporating play into your classroom. Maybe it's not exactly what you expected when you signed up for this. We've gone with this playing downhill idea of interjecting playfulness into the classroom. We've gotten this playing uphill idea where we're working together, thinking about ways to be cooperative, but still to strive to meet an objective. So I hope that was something new, gave you some new ideas that you might be able to use in your classroom. And now it's time for some free stuff. First of all, I do want to point out a couple things that are always free to everybody who's connected with the Van Andel Institute for Education. We've got one specific timely topic with some great games. It's called Games, Games, Games. Says what it is right there on the tin. Again, that is linked in your hyperdoc. Here are 3 really clever little games that you can use with lots of different ages of kids. In fact, even our staff loves to do these. We like to play here as well, and we hope that you do as well. So check those out. We've got lots of other timely topics. These are useful any time of year. We've got something for every season, and each timely topic includes lots of playful hands-on lessons and We're introducing something new, and we're going to give you a sneak preview. We've got strategy explorations, where you'll actually be able to interact with one of those thing links, which includes great teaching ideas. So there's one sneak preview linked in the hyperdoc, and be on the lookout for more strategy explorations around different elements of outstanding teaching. We also have another free thing coming up, Classrooms That Matter, making PBL a reality. That is our next webinar. Make sure that you get registered for that so that you can see my boss, Dawn, in action thinking about project-based learning. And we've got a free giveaway. We're going to let you choose, if you are the winner, which of these you would like to get. We've got Blue Apple projects. We've got self-guided next-gen inquiry quests, and we've got a free registration for that conference I mentioned, next year's Science on the Grand. So if you are the winner, you will get to select whichever of those you would like. And all you need to do to win is to to complete the survey that's going to pop up on your screen as soon as I am done. But before I am done, I would like to point out that we love to connect with teachers. There's nothing I love more than coming to a school, either in person or virtually, and connecting with awesome educators to help them get more ideas that they can use to become a little bit more awesome than they already are. We've got sessions on things like inquiry learning, creativity and innovation, student-driven learning. You can read them right up there. If you are interested in learning more, check out vaei.org. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I hope that you got something practical that you're going to be able to use with your students this school year. So go forth and let the games begin. Thank you very much.